Hi, welcome back to another edition of Dollars and Cents, the show that helps you make common sense with your hard-earned money. This week, we're going to dive into wasting money, specifically when it comes to our governments, local, state, and federal. And to help me do this, I have a fantastic guest, none other than Bill Mick from Bill Mick Live from WMMB. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. Our listeners and watchers like to kind of learn how to make the most of their money. And what I want to focus this show on today is how can somebody be an advocate for the tax dollars they're paying in whatever form they're paying, and how we can make sure it's going to the best and possible use, or even cut out any government waste that we see. And we want to keep this as apolitical as possible. Both you and I know each other pretty well, and we both sit on the right side of the aisle. But for anyone watching, what can they do responsibly to get active and cut government waste?
Nobody said citizenship was easy, and it's not. You have to be engaged. And if you're not, you've elected representatives who are going to spend the money that they have available to them, whether it's the city, county, state, or federal level. They're going to spend that money as they see fit, as they believe you've elected them to do. Well, if they're not doing that, how do you correct it? You've got to step in, get involved, get engaged at the meetings at whatever level, so you know and understand. They're going to publish a long, boring list of what's going on in their county commission meeting or in their special group meeting. And you're going to have a list that means absolutely nothing to you until you sit down in there and understand and learn what's going on. There'll be consent decree items. They'll spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a consent decree issue that they just vote yes or no on the whole package. You never know what's in it. So you've got to be able to dig in and understand what's going on.
So let's go there. So we talked about public meetings. So
Sure.
Let's start on the most basic local level. So we have city governments, municipalities, county governments, typically county commissioners, things of the like.
School boards on that level too.
School boards is a county government, and these meetings are all public notice. So they're going to be posted on the county or whatever municipality's website. So that's
Sure.
the first place they can go to.
Legally noticed in Florida today because it's the paper of record in this community.
Right. So they have to put notice out there. So the meetings you can be easily made aware if you care to take a look. I advise people to show up and sit through like a county commission meeting at least once. It can be a very boring experience.
It's either that or run a drill through your head, one of the two, but yeah.
But going through that process, they'll learn how you can speak at one of these meetings. You have to sign
Sure.
up. You have to, state who you are. It's all public record, and today it's all video archived. And I think most of our meetings are even broadcast here on local TV as well.
Sure they are.
So where should they start? Should they look for something that they think personally is a waste item? For instance, here in our local government right now, we have a problem with roads. And you hear the political pundits clamoring, we need new taxes for roads. You and I are both on the side that we don't think we need any new taxes,
Right.
but regardless, how do we dig in and find out where they're spending the money on the roads? How does someone do that?
When are you best engaged? When it's something that you're passionate about, something that gets you here, something that's important to you. Find that issue. Follow it. See if it's being funded appropriately, or if money's being taken away from it and done with it and going to somewhere else that you don't think is an appropriate expenditure of government funds. Take a look at that. Now, you've got to have a philosophy about what government should be spending money on.
Right.
Okay, you and I know where we are there, and as little as possible, certain infrastructure things, safety, roads, schools, drainage, those kind of things, infrastructure,
Right.
and public safety is where we're looking. I don't even think you need to fund a fire department. A volunteer fire department in my hometown of Indian Harbor Beach is more than effective and more than efficient. A little tougher in a bigger city, maybe. I don't know.
My brother's a volunteer firefighter just outside of D.C. in one of the nicest firehouses you've ever set foot in.
Yeah.
And they only have 2 paid staff, and the rest are volunteers. They have over 100 volunteers in the station.
So we could go to a model like that. In some of these communities, Satellite Beach, for example, spending a lot of money on a fire department. And I know the guys on the fire department, they're good people.
Right.
They are dedicated professionals. They're doing a good job. Do they need 30 of them? No. But
Right.
I'm not saying take their jobs away. I'm saying restructure as it's appropriate to do so through attrition. And at some point, minimally staff your fire station with a couple of guys per shift. And then have the volunteers in the community be there. The barber, like on Andy Griffith, taking off. Floyd takes off the jacket, right? And runs out and puts on the fire hat, and they all go. That still works in America. But you got to be passionate about what you're talking about.
Well, you touched on a great point there. Employment costs are huge. Labor in any business or
Absolutely.
operation is a huge cost. And what the problem is in private enterprise, When you need to staff up or hire more people, there's more business, you expand, you hire more people. But as soon as, if business goes slower, shuts down, you have to lay people off. It's just the natural order of things. And we are going to go through recessions and expansion in our economy. Our government never wants to lay anybody off.
Right.
And so that seems to be a problem, but that's probably a topic for a whole other show in and of itself.
Well, you've got the legacy cost of those employees too,
Right.
whether they're on the FRS retirement system or whatever system they may be on. And there are several choices for municipalities, and that can be a tough nut to crack too.
All right, so we've talked about going to these meetings as an advocate for like the county commissioner, the school board, even in city and local governments. Now let's talk about, you brought up a great point. Find an issue you're passionate about, whether it's, you know, animal shelters or, you know, the education of our children, whatever it is, show up to these meetings and find a particular niche. So how does one go about finding out what part of the budgets are mandated or mandatory from higher ups, the state or federal government, unfortunately, are going to tell our people how to spend money, and even though I would disagree with that, but there's discretionary spending in every budget. How does the average citizen know what that spending that is discretionary, that they can call their local representative and say, hey, what are you doing?
It goes back to being engaged and being an informed citizen, and call that representative, call that school board member that you voted for and say, I want to talk to you about the budget. Number one, they'll be shocked that you called. Number two, they'll be happy to sit down with you and explain to you what they know. There's a learning curve, even for them. A new school board member, a couple of 3 years before they're fully grounded and ready to actually talk legitimately about the restrictions on their budget. What is mandated by the feds? What is mandated by the states? What are categorical funds? Well, it means that certain monies have to be spent for certain things. You can only use certain money for construction projects.
Right.
You can only use certain monies for in school, in the classroom type things. The other things could be discretionary, not a lot of discretionary money, which is a big surprise. And that's actually the truth with the county commission as well. They talk about these road funds, and you and I look at things that they're spending money on, and we'll say, you know what, if they weren't spending that, they'd have that much money for roads. Thing is, that money goes in that bucket, and it can't come over here to this one, which is ridiculous, but it can't.
So how does the citizen affect change for that?
Well, by going in and being the advocate for doing what's right with the money. You've done it on the school board level. You've served as a volunteer for one of the school board members, showing them how they can save money on insurance, and they've done so to the tune of millions of dollars. That's a huge service you provided for this community. If someone would do that for the county commission and show them, right now they're giving $500,000 of our tax dollars away every year to charitable organizations. Their excuse is, well, some of these things the county would have to do if there weren't this charitable organization doing it. Yet I've seen duplicate services within the list of people who are begging for money from the commission.
Right.
It's not the county's role to be charitable. They are taking this money at the point of a gun. Do you get in trouble if you don't pay your taxes? You bet you do. So what right do they have to give that money to charity? Absolutely none. We're starting to see a mindset change there. I hope it's successful. It may take a year or two to get it done.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one to get undone, because I
It's
think
only
like
$500,000. It's not going to pave a lot of roads, but it's the principle that if you're taking money in taxes from the people of Brevard County, they have a right to expect a service from that money, and for you not to be giving it away frivolously.
Well, for instance, every one of our local municipalities has to put forth a budget for themselves, whether it's the cities, small governments like Satellite Beach,
Right.
Cocoa Beach, or the county as a whole.
Right.
And every one of them has vehicles that they have to put gas, fuel, and maintenance in, and they all budget based on what they think the forecast is for how much mileage they're going to drive. Our school buses, well, it just so happens in the last 24 months, collectively, with all the governments in our county, Brevard County, we're talking north of $6 million in savings in fuel costs from what they had budgeted.
Plus, gas prices went down.
Right.
Yeah.
Where'd the money go? What'd they do?
It is sitting there in that budget for that fleet department or the police maintenance garage or whoever is responsible for handling those dollars. It's sitting there in their budget waiting to see what they're going to do with it.
Wouldn't it behoove our local governments to have some kind of fiscal oversight committee that allows them, hey, we're overfunded out of this bucket, let's move it over to this bucket?
You would think so, but they did it in Satellite Beach. It worked for a couple of years, and all of a sudden, the good old boys in town who liked big government spending. Now, the new city council at the time in Satellite Beach had reduced taxes, had put money back in the rainy day fund. I forget what that's called, but they put money back in there, and they were providing the same level of services. Nobody had been laid off, anything like that. Nobody suffered a pay cut or anything else. But they started voting those people out of office that were being fiscally responsible. So it just depends on what community you're in. They want more and more services.
It's a double-edged sword, and it works both ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes people cut programs, people get upset. Like locally, we had schools that were announced closures a few years ago. quite a big ruffle, and feathers are ruffled. Elections happen. Speaking of elections, we have elections coming up again. So this is a time for change. And with these elections, what I care about is that you're an educated voter. I believe it is your right as a citizen, obviously, to vote, and I think it's your duty to get educated before you vote. And obviously, we're going to have philosophies on both sides of the aisle or other parties. We have mainly, unfortunately, still just a two-party system here. But I think we have a political revolution going on where people are tired of the status quo from any party leaders. And so you're starting to see people advocate for more change, which I think is a good thing for you and I as the John Q. public. So with these elections coming up, what do you think is the best avenue for the average citizen out there to educate themselves on all these different races? And because obviously the local paper, they're going to have their slot or their endorsements, and they're going to be slanted one way or the other depending on the committee that wrote those endorsements. You as a radio personality are going to have your opinions on this, but how does someone get the best well-rounded view of all these candidates?
To be engaged. I'm not saying you have to chase these candidates to every forum, but you need to go to a forum or two, especially in the races that are of particular interest to you. It can be a long slog, don't get me wrong. It can be tough to do the rubber chicken circuit with those candidates every night during the campaign season. They're going...
And there's an event, I get it on Facebook Friends every night.
They're going to a homeowners association, they're going to this committee or this group or that group. They're speaking in a lot of places. Go find them. Go on the campaign's website, take a look and see what, but there again, they can tell you anything. You need to look somebody in the eye. You need to know who they are. So in addition to my opinions, which I have plenty of, I also bring these candidates on the show. I will talk to them on the air. You can hear them. We will also do video interviews with the candidates, post them on our station webpage, so you can go back and look at these candidates as they give these answers at any time. So yes, I have my opinions. I have listeners who got the first request last week, somebody saying, hey, when are you going to put out your picks for the election? I don't feel it's my role to pick for anybody, but I am honest enough with my audience to tell them how I'm going to vote and why. Right. If they agree with me, great. If they don't, that's okay. No problem. No skin off my nose.
Well, the key there is, as I think with anybody, if you advocate for someone, is the why.
Yeah,
Don't tell me just to vote for somebody, because my whole client base in my investment advisory practice, I joke with every client. I tell you how to vote if you want to know. And why, because I think it matters for your money.
Sure.
So the why is the key component there. So we want our citizens to go out and get educated for the election. So let's talk about that for just a moment. Okay. So here locally, we have primaries coming up in the month of August, and that's just around the corner.
August 30th.
So where can they go? So they can go to our county website now, has every candidate that's qualified as a candidate.
You go to votebrevard.com. That's the Supervisor of Elections website. Complete list of the candidates that are on the ballot for the primary. And of course, we already had the presidential preference primary earlier in the year.
Right.
So now this is the primary for the state offices. And you can take a look at each of those candidates. There will be the information that the candidates have provided the qualifying official. In the case of state officials, they qualified through the state office division of elections. So it's whatever they provided Tallahassee. And the local candidates, the countywide candidates, those folks qualified through Lori Scott's office, and whatever information they provided the supervisor of elections
is available. And you can look right there, see how much money they've raised. You can even look to see who from, right? So you can really do some deep dive on a candidate.
Their financial reports are there, absolutely.
Right. So you can learn quite a bit, and then go call the candidate up, contact them via their webpage or whatever, and sit down with them or meet them at an event, right?
Absolutely.
So, all right, now that you've met the candidates, we got through the primary season, that's going to basically cut our field down quite a bit. In some races, if they're running, basically if we only have 2 Republicans, and we have a county here where we seem to have that, no Democrats run in some races, we get the field down to say 2, they're going to go at it again, and then you got to make a decision again coming November in the general election. And obviously, that election's going to have some bigger races in there nationally. Obviously, we have a presidential election this year. So when these people are advocating for it, I think it's so important that people understand you don't have to vote a party line either.
No, very true. Especially locally, in local governments. I will tell you right now, I'm probably as strong a Republican as you're going to find in this county, but there are Democrats I have voted for and that I would vote for again because I know who they are, I trust their business acumen, I trust their judgment, and I know at their core they are good, fiscally responsible people. There are some of those folks you need in positions, and I'm not talking about nonpartisan positions, although it could be that.
Right.
I just don't believe any position, judges, school board, or anything, should be nonpartisan. I want to know everything I can know about you. Your politics aren't going to affect me if I voted for judges who are flaming Democrats who are dear friends of mine today. But we don't see eye to eye politically. It just happens that way. But if you can sit on the bench and do your job, I don't care what you think about a presidential race. I want to know what you think about the law. What makes the difference there?
You brought up a great one there that I still, in the state of Florida here, I moved here 30 years ago, but we elect all our local judges here, but we can't ask them their political affiliations.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Now obviously they don't have as much fiscally to do with our budgets and things, so that's really not our focus today, but I still think it's odd that you can't really kind of penetrate who they are, and you're going to put them on a bench that either, and I've served, I don't know why I keep getting called, but I've served I've been called for jury duty 8 times in my life already, and I've served on 5 juries. So
you should not talk bad about the clerk of courts. That gets you on the list. I'm sure Mitch Needleman put me on the list the last time.
So, all right, so let's get back to the saving money for our local citizens here. So we've talked about elections, our elected officials. You should get involved, and obviously we have elections coming up, so you can make a change if you don't like the people that are there now. But let's just talk about spending in general. We have all kinds of programs. For instance, I know you're not a big fan. We have our local Economic Development Council that takes money from our taxpayers, but from the research I've done, they're not too transparent with what they do with those dollars. Now, obviously, they're there to go advocate to land us economic growth by getting businesses to relocate here, create jobs here, et cetera. How can the average citizen go demand or put more pressure to find out, hey, what are you doing with this money, and can you show me what the ROI is? In other words, what's the return on the investment? Something I can relate to.
The pressure point for the EDC is going to be the county commission. It's the county commission that determines whether or not they give funding to the Economic Development Council or Commission. And that's a $1.4 million a year of your county tax dollars going to the EDC to fund economic development. Now, Brevard has voted on a couple of occasions over the last 20 years, yes, we want to have economic development funds available. We want to give tax abatements to businesses that want to relocate here. The voters, some 70, 80% of the voters saying, yes, this is a good thing. It's the competitive world we live in now. When you're trying to draw business, you need to be able to give them a break if you want them to bring those jobs here. Okay, fine. But they've expanded that. Now they're doing cash in advance on businesses that, I don't know, is that a good idea? I don't think so. And they're going to the county commission, and the commission's sitting there blind saying, we need you to give us this cash advance for this certain business that's going to bring you these jobs.
Non-disclosure agreements all the time. That is so simple to get. They simply sign an NDA, and they should have full vetting of before the money goes. And any county commissioner that votes for something without knowing, they should be held accountable come the election. Simple.
Now, when it was Embraer and Project Jaguar, I really went off about that on the air. And not that that's not been a good thing, but either the county commission didn't know, or they were lying to the public at the time. There were some commissioners after the fact said, oh, well, we knew what it was. Well, then you lied to the public when you said you didn't know what it was. Which is it? I don't mind you as my elected official being able to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I elect you to do that so I don't have to.
Right.
So go ahead and do the job I ask you to do. But don't give money away without knowing what's going on.
I would concur with you in there. I want them to know what's going on.
Absolutely.
So we have the groups like the EDC, regardless of the thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent. Then there's other ones like the TDC, or our Tourism Council, that, I just went across the state to visit my wife's parents and dropped my son off for a week at his grandparents, and there's signs, for our local community here. And most people, vacationing from 30 years ago, you drove down the interstate and you picked a hotel. Today, you've already got it mapped out because of technology. Your hotel's booked, your stay's already routed. So aren't those dollars maybe being wasted, or could they be spent in another way?
The one time I have seen this be effective where the citizens have been able to say no was when the TDC, Tourism Development Council, wanted to take, that's the 5% bed tax, or 10% bed tax, whatever it's, right? 6%, 6 cents, I don't know, whatever it is now. They wanted to take some of that money and build a lemonade stand on I-95 up around Mims, right? And they wanted, people driving I-95 that are already in your county aren't going to stop in your county if they hadn't already planned it. Giving them free orange juice and a brochure about going to Ron John's ain't going to work, boys and girls. Let's be smart about how we spend this money. The billboards you reference, don't even mention how to find information about Brevard. No website to go to brevard.com or visit brevard.com or anything like that. It was very poorly spent dollars. And they spent $67,000 on a statue of Ponce de Leon in Melbourne Beach. Really? My sister came and visited me a couple of times and bought a condo in Cape Canaveral. She brings friends with her all the time. I've earned the 67 grand. Old Ponce hadn't done it. Come on, pay me. I brought more tourism than he ever did. It's ridiculous. They need to spend their money more intelligently. Market yourself in Minnesota. Market yourself in Buffalo,
Well, so
where
for
people will
instance,
come down for the winter.
I grew up mainly in Northern Virginia on a farm, and
Sure.
I to this day remember I Need It Bad. It was a commercial for Florida tourism, for Central Florida.
Yeah.
They ran these commercials. I Need It Bad. It was someone pushing a car falling down the snow. I need it bad. Next thing you know, there's a song come on. You need the sunshine. You need the whatever it was of Florida, and it got people to take vacation. Now,
Anita Bryant with a glass of orange juice. Here we go.
That's
Let's
smart
go.
marketing because
Sure.
let's get out of town and let's take a
Spend
weekend
it where
in the
you're
sun.
going to find your clients.
Right, absolutely.
Instead of taking these extravagant vacations, going to China, going to Japan. Okay, yeah, those folks are really looking to come to Brevard, unless they're looking at how to build rockets, in which case there might be something to do there. But market to where your visitors are going to come from and give them a reason to come here. Now, things are going great in Brevard. It's a beautiful place. I love living here. Nothing like living in Brevard County, and lots of things to do. There are some touristy things growing in Brevard. That's a good thing. There's a new putt-putt place in Cocoa Beach. I think it's a lot of fun. They've done a good job with it. I'm not aware that it got any tax breaks to go be built or anything, right? It's something that's going to enhance what's going on in that community.
Speaking, I'm a local business owner, and look, I believe too we're a competitive environment. To bring large employers, we have to be competitive to what we're against. But how do we know? How do we trust that what somebody else is offering that we don't over-offer? You know, and what's the incentive on the group that's giving these offers out? So that could take some further looking. So let's talk down to some of the county governments. So explain to me, what is a CRA?
It's a community redevelopment area or agency. It's what cities use to redevelop a blighted downtown, if you will. Now, blight's a word that's got any definition that the city council wants to throw on. The problem is these CRAs have been misused for so long. It used to be to upgrade a downtown area and that type of thing. I've seen CRAs created and used to force sign regulation changes, and your church, whose sign was compliant last month, is now not compliant, but they've got a $1,500 grant from the CRA for you to replace your sign under the new regulations. Well, it was just good last year. Why is it not good now? So they're using it to force their will on people for crazy changes. Economic development zone, very much the same thing on a broader level, on the county level. Robin Fisher created one in North County with the North Brevard Economic Development Zone. They've already committed millions of dollars out of there that haven't been generated yet to various businesses. They're going to be put into that economic development zone up there. When
so
done
what can
properly,
a citizen do to make sure there's some kind of return on that investment? How can people advocate,
again,
saying, show me what this has benefited? I want to see it in a report. I want to see numbers. I want to see
engaged
real data
at the city level and ask them what's being done with that money. You're going to have to press city governments, especially city managers who come in and let's face it, they got educated in how to run a city government, how to grow a city government. They don't want to be questioned about what they're doing. They don't want you thinking that they're not appropriately spending that money. They don't want political turmoil coming down on their head. But you've got to go look at that. You've got to look close. Satellite Beach, their original CRA was put together to deal with uneven lot sizes or something in that particular area. After 20 years, they've never addressed the problem they were created to address. Never.
Well, we have that in many facets of government today. So, Bill, I want to give you a local circumstance that has come to my attention. A dear friend has owned a property for 35 years on Shell Street in Satellite Beach. 6 tenant occupied units. It's a multiplex. It's been there for 35 years. She rents out to tenants. This is her only retirement income. Her husband left her. And they came through and upgraded the roads to the city of Satellite Beach and wiped out all the parking. And now the road have turned it in and put up signs creating that this is public beach parking. And now she has a building with 6 tenants and no parking that has been established for over 35 years. What can someone like that do to fight the city?
You mean other than balloons filled with paint coming from the top of the building when somebody parks there? It's an interesting question. First question is property ownership. Who actually owns the property that the city came in? Did they take it by eminent domain? If they did, do they owe her some money? Was it the city's property to begin with? Did she have a right-of-way or an easement that had existed some period of time? It's going to take a lawyer to get involved here because I don't know the ins and outs of this, but it sounds like she's certainly been wronged, and knowing City of Satellite Beach, there's not a sympathetic ear to be had. Those folks don't care about residents. They don't care about businesses. They care about running the city the way they want to run it. Might take a lawyer. It might take a lawyer from Jacksonville. It might take a lawyer from Atlanta. because taking on City Hall
You
is
would
not an
think
easy
that the
thing to do.
project manager or the on-site construction manager would have noticed, hey, I'm about to cut these 6 driveways off here and pave them, make them public road. Maybe I don't knock on the door and give the heads up to the owner and let them know what's going on. No notification.
City Hall said
anytime.
this. City Hall said this. That's what I'm going to do. They're responsible, not me. I'm just doing what I'm told.
So,
that's the problem.
Well, hopefully our citizens have paid attention today, can become great advocates for themselves.
I hope so.
And
that's tough. That's a tough circumstance. I hope she has some success there.
So let's talk about, this is a new economy and some fantastic businesses that are very innovative popped up through what we call now a sharing economy. And this is like Lyft and Uber for ride sharing services. And now you have cab companies up in arms. It's through like places like Airbnb and VRBO where you can rent a house or a condo, and they're all over here. And now people are getting, the county governments are trying to overreach and regulate, and because of course they want, regulate means tax, right? And tax somebody for making money. What can the average citizen do to figure out, hey, did I overstep a bound? Because a lot of people are probably breaking a tax law. For instance, homestead exemptions is one that we find that is a problem where people have snowbirds or people that lived up north and have come down here and homesteaded a Florida property, and they may have homesteaded their property in another state 25 years ago and not realize they've been breaking both states' laws.
Exactly, and that's the problem. Dana Blickley in her office is absolutely phenomenal in the property appraiser's office about advising you about those laws and you being able to not break that law. Going back to the Uber thing, I found it interesting that the cab companies and the limo companies that are now facing competition from somebody with an electronic app on a smartphone where you don't handle cash.
Right.
You pay through your phone, you tip through your phone if it's allowed. You do all of that electronically. You don't have to handle cash with that Uber driver now. The cab companies are screaming, oh no, regulate us. We do background checks. We want them to have them. It's a consumer taking the risk here, not the cab companies. The cab companies wanted to use the power of government to limit their competition. So my answer was, okay, well, if you're going to beg for regulation, here's the regulation. You must have a smartphone app where people can pay you electronically and call you by their smartphone and you be there like Uber does. You want me to regulate you? You become Uber because they just outcompeted you in your own world. It's what they did.
Well, and innovation always makes breakthroughs, but they're disruptive technologies when these come along. And I don't think it's the government's job to stop this progress.
Not at all.
It's to, in fact, facilitate, and we want to innovate and facilitate this because it's better for the end consumer and the taxpayer.
5-6 years ago, let's go old school. 5-6 years ago, there was a new roller rink that wanted to open in Melbourne. The old roller rink stepped up and said, they're within 1.5 miles of us. We don't want them to open over there. We need you to regulate that out of existence. Well, no, do your job. Be as good as you can be and compete with them. Actually, the competition would have been good for them both.
See, real businesses that want to compete want their competitor right next to them. Because if you're better than your competitor...
Let me show you.
Let me show you. Listen, McDonald's, everyone knows, is the world's largest restaurant chain. Very successful chain. Why does Burger King select sites that are right on the other corner?
Right.
Because they want the traffic that McDonald's has already paid to generate,
That's
right?
Exactly
it's pretty simple and give you a choice, or Wendy's or whoever. So competition breeds, innovation and disruptive technology.
Well, that takes us to the port, because the port, there's another governmental entity here. They need to know and embrace who they are. McDonald's got where they are by being the best hamburgers and French fries available in less than 2 minutes or whatever the time was. This port needs to realize what kind of port it is. It's a terminal for people going on cruises. You need to have something at that port that is a drawing attraction for those kind of tourist folks.
Correct. They get dollars on before or after you're getting on or off the boat.
And they're wanting to make it bigger than it is. They're wanting to be this major cargo port, which I can see room for some of that. But don't neglect your mainstay business, which is those port customers. That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
Understand
and
who you are.
Orlando
and
Major
be the
International
best
Airport, less than an hour's drive away. So.
Yeah.
This has been fascinating, Bill. We're running out of time here on the show this week, but so just what words to the wise would you give here in closing to our watchers out there on how they can just be better advocates in general citizens of government dollars?
Nobody said being a citizen was easy. Be engaged. Pay attention to what's going on. There are avenues for you. There are venues for you. And if you want to scream about it, I'm there every morning from 6 to 9. We talk these issues every day with people in Brevard. And I'm not going to tell you I'm not biased. I am. I'm paid to bring my opinion to the table. But I'll also listen to yours and see what's going on. We have a discussion. We learn a little more. We understand a little better where we're going.
Great. Bill, thanks for joining me here. I want to thank our guest, Bill Mick, for joining us on Dollars and Cents. If you'd like to listen to Bill in the mornings, he can be heard on WMMB 1240 AM every weekday from 6 to 9 a.m. right here in Brevard County. This is your host, David Brooks, wishing you a prosperous week.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.